have to wait for EMS or fire now, they can go ahead and administer that. It's important to note though really quick that this doesn't take the place of EMS. Our officers will still immediately be calling for EMS in the event that they think that they've come into contact with someone who's a victim of an opiate overdose. The difference here is that we will have the ability to start those life-saving measures immediately without even having to wait. Today we do have Director Eckhart and EMS instructor and Sergeant Mafo Judd. Now Sergeant Mafo is our first opiate. He was the first one to deploy the Narcan to actually revive a victim of an opiate overdose. So the first Cleveland police officer to actually use it on the scene. So while we're getting the computer hooked up and making sure that everything's going to work 100% at 100% certainty, Director, would you like to say anything?
Sure, just a couple things. Thanks, Jen.
Let's watch out. Watch out. Let's see the lights. We're doing your face. Yeah, that's
better.
Sit down, and then it will reflect on you.
That's better. That's better on his face right now.
All right. I think one thing that Jen didn't touch on, which I think is very important, is this is also an additional layer of protection for our police officers. You may have heard a couple weeks ago there were some officers, I think out in Liverpool, Ohio, that were actually exposed to what I think ended up being carfentanil, which we know is in Cleveland. Given that this is such a highly toxic, highly easily spread powder, our officers may encounter a situation where they go in and there's some powder on the table, and during a scuffle or something, that powder gets airborne, and now they're contaminated with it. So this also gives them an added layer of protection for themselves in the event that that happens, and also for our canine units. This medication works the same exact way on dogs. So in the event that one of our canine officers and his partner were in doing an investigation and that canine officer became exposed, the Narcan could be used on them as well. This is just one more kind of collaborative program between the divisions of EMS and the Division of Police within the Department of Public Safety. You guys know a couple of years ago, the Ebola incident happened here in Northeast Ohio. And EMS stepped up at that time with their trainers and educators and provided training and education to all of the police officers. And at that time, they were issued personal protective kits. The second collaborative project was the first aid training that was done under the tutelage of EMS instructors, and that's been highly successful. Cleveland police officers are using those first aid kits at a rate that none of us had expected that they would, and they are making a difference in the community every day with that training. So we think this Narcan training is just another tool in their toolbox. This is a crisis that we're dealing with. Been in the business 36 years and haven't seen anything like this. Even back in the day when crack was really prevalent in the community, nothing compared to what's going on today. So I think this is just another good example of our divisions working together under the direction of Mayor Jackson, and we will continue to ensure that we're taking whatever steps necessary to serve the community, but also make sure that our first responders are protected.
Director, what's the threshold? When do you decide to use or not use? Do you need evidence of drug abuse, or if you just find somebody unresponsive, does it harm if you?
Yeah, this Narcan has literal no side effects. So if it's used on somebody that says that may be a diabetic and they're unconscious for that reason, if it's used, it will not harm them in any way. Usually it's pretty obvious when you come across an overdose. In the training that Sergeant Katakunin will talk about a little bit, they covered those signs and symptoms in the training for the officers. But what's nice about Narcan is that there is no side effects, so if it's used and the person wasn't overdosed on an opioid, no harm, no foul. But it certainly gives those extra life-saving minutes until we can reverse that opioid and then get people to the hospital and get them taken care of.
What took so long? Why police departments around the state have been using Narcan? What took Cleveland Police so long?
It's a large division, number one. Secondly, we wanted to make sure that we were using a product that was the most effective in terms of the dosing. The medication that's in the kits specific for the Division of Police are different than what our EMS paramedics and our firefighters use. Our medical director, working with the medical examiner, took some time to look at what's the right dosage. Normally Narcan for decades was issued in 2 milligram dosages. What we're finding today with the opioid overdose situation here with heroin and fentanyl and carfentanil, often patients are getting 18, 20 milligrams of Narcan to help reverse their overdose. And so we wanted to make sure that the kits that we're providing to the Division of the Police were going to be the most effective at being able to reverse it without having them to go through multiple dosages. So that was one part of it. And then the second part, quite frankly, we wanted to make sure we did this right. We wanted to make sure we were doing the training correctly, that it's in the right officer's hands, and that it's deployed appropriately. Because even though this is great, our division of EMS has been using Narcan in the community since 1983. It's not new to us. We use it every day for overdoses. And our division of fire has had it for about 5 years now. So this is great that we're adding the division of police, but it's not that our community was not receiving this life-saving medication prior to the division.
So just to be clear, are you saying that this kit is stronger than what EMS would be carrying?
In terms of the single dosage it is, but EMS and fire has more of the medication, so they would just give multiple doses of it.
Cost?
Commissioner, what's the cost of?
We spent about $50,000, that was in the press release, to get them up and running.
So what is the dosage?
Those are 4 milligram atomizers, and there'll be 2 of those in the kit. Sergeant Katakunin's actually going to open the kits for you guys, and he'll go through all of its contents.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, could you identify yourself?
Sure. Edward Eckhart, E-C-K-A-R-T, Assistant Director of Public Safety.
As I said before, I believe most of you were here for the training that they did, and you should have that. And Sergeant Katakunin actually did the training.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Sergeant Michael Katakunin with the Division of EMS. I just want to show you briefly here what we have inside our kit. In our Narcan kit, this container here is very, very tough. So in regards to how police carries it, it's able to withstand the differences in the way they drive, the way they might be able to handle it. So this medication is protected in a very safe container. Inside the container, there are 2 blister packs, which are equivalent to 8 milligrams of Narcan. Inside the container as well, there will be gloves for their own personal protection, so they don't accidentally get exposed to the medication or to anything in regards to administration of Narcan. Once this kit opens up, the first thing we ask them to do is put on gloves. So there are a pair of gloves in here for them to put on for personal protection. This is called a blister pack. Inside the blister pack is Narcan. This Narcan right here, the concentration is 4 milligrams in 0.01 milliliter. What's good about that is there's a whole lot less fluid to administer to somebody, so it's much more concentrated. The lack of it being lost in during somebody's administration is very, very, very seldom. Everything's being delivered properly in that small amount. During their 1 hour of training, they receive training from what signs and symptoms they should see in regards to an opiate overdose. And during that training, they also receive hands-on as well on how to put the gloves together and how to administer the medication properly. They started off administering 1 blister pack, the 4 milligrams, and they administer it to 1 nostril. If there's no result in 2 minutes, then they get to re-administer another 4 milligrams. Hopefully by that time the patient has responded, or EMS or fire has arrived to assist with the patient who's overdosed.
Okay, so we're going to take a minute here. Sergeant Maffo is going to tell you a little bit about what's happening in the video, what he encountered that day. We do respectfully ask that if there is any language, so if anyone's live, you might not want to include any of the actual audio in the event that there's some swearing or things like that. But we're going to go ahead and Tim's going to tell us about what he saw that day, and then we'll play the video for you.
Sure. In this video, good. In this video, I was on a routine patrol as a sector supervisor in the 2nd District. Detective Matos, who chose not to be here due to the capacity of her job description. She called over radio. She was working a part-time job, had her radio on her. I was driving home, and she radioed that there was a heroin overdose at a traffic stop, or an intersection. What had happened is she pulled behind a car at a red light. The red light cycled several times, so she beeped her horn. When she beeped her horn, the passenger got out of the car, came up to her driver's side window and said, Narcan overdose, and ran. So a lot of times that's what people do, or drop people off at hospitals. So in this case, she went to the front of the car, observed a male slumped over the wheel, used her division-issued radio, and said to the 2nd District personnel that there was an overdose. So I was on routine patrol. I knew that I had Narcan in my duty bag, so I went to the scene. When I got there, Detective Matos and the civilian were there and told me what happened. So I put my gloves on en route, got the medicine from my bag, with the assistance of a civilian, pulled the male out of the car and put him on the ground. I'm prior EMS here, so I spent a lot of time in this building, took him out of the car, and took the medicine out of the bag. With the assistance of the civilian, I administered the units in his nostrils as I was trained, and when fire got there, they administered some more, and we watched him come back. So it's kind of cool to see the way they come back and respond to these kind of drugs. So I'm glad that I had it and that I was in the area. So we'll go into the video. We'll move past this great shot of my right knee. So you're not going to get sound for 30 seconds. That's the way these videos go. So I'm going to kind of skip through. It's an 18-minute long video, so I'll show you the highlights if I can. So this is me en route, and you can't hear anything again because it's not past 30 seconds. So here's where the male is in the car. I knew that he was in there. Hey, I got to get this gentleman out of the car. So that's exactly what I did. And again, this stuff, it happens very quickly, so you got to react. So we took him out of the car. You'll see the male is obviously not moving, not responding. Check for a quick pulse and breathing when we can. And there's me taking the drug out. So Detective Matos is trying to see, revive him. Are you okay, sir? Just as we're trained. I'm trying to get the drug together. I'm not perfect, so it took me a little bit longer than I expected. But I eventually did get the product together. So once we squared away, I did it as I was trained. Right nostril, left nostril, and I did right back to the right nostril again. So we gave him all the units that I had in my bag. Again, I apologize. You'll see me fumble a little bit. A lot of times in medical emergencies, shootings, whatever goes on the street, we're the first ones there. This is no different. More often than not, we are the first one there in a Narcan situation, heroin. So I'd already given a unit. You see it on the ground here. I noted the time that we gave it for the report and for EMS, because I know that's important. And after the administration, you'll get to see a little bit about how they revive, how they come back, and how quick it is. Check for a pulse again. Check for breathing. Fire's there at this time. So you'll see the units that I used on the ground and the boxes that it came in. And a couple minutes later, fire's they're gonna give an additional dose. So as of now, we're just waiting for him to revive. It's important we check the pupils on his eyes. The pupils are good indicators of a drug overdose. If you heard me say, I don't know if you guys can hear it here, he has a pulse, his heart's beating pretty strong. So it's crazy how fast they do come back and react to drugs. So that's the important thing. He's breathing, he's got a heart rate. Now I know he's probably going to come back. If that starts diminishing again, we'll hit him with another dose. checking his pupils again, all the stuff that we're trained to do. And again, I happen to be, it's lucky if you will, I happen to be the guy on duty with the drug at the right time in the right place. There's 1,500 of us that would do the same thing. So I step back, I kind of let fire take control so you can see the interventions that they're providing. They come with advanced drugs, oxygen, a pulse oximeter to see how his breathing is affected, and that he is perfusing oxygen. Right now they're helping him breathe. And you'll see it's right in the middle of the street. This is an intersection of a busy street in the 2nd District. There's people everywhere, traffic. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a home or a garage or somewhere secluded. People do this at a red light. This is something that's happening. So again, this is where the car was, right in the intersection. Again, daily business going on as usual. Cars being towed. You don't want me to skip to where he comes back a little better? Okay.
And then too, if you guys want to shoot it off of the laptop screen, it might be a little bit clearer. You know, I know that's like kind of shadowy and stuff, so we can just play the highlights for you on camera on the laptop screen.
Or you can play it off. Is it good for you? Big screen? Just bring it like that?
It's up to you, just offer.
I might shoot it there just like if you want to.
You can kind of see now where he's starting to come back. He's opening his eyes a little bit. Get back to that. There he is. And it's just like that. Now he's sitting up. A few more minutes he'll be able to talk. And EMS will transport him to the hospital where usually they're released in a couple hours, if I'm not mistaken. So from not breathing, barely having a pulse, and this has been 9 minutes since I turned the video on. So that's even en route. 9 minutes, this gentleman comes back and he's breathing, moving, talking, just like we wanted. Great shot of my right hand. There he is. Eyes open, talking. And that's just how quick this 10 minutes and 45 seconds into the video, how quick this drug has an effect.
So what was the total dosage that was needed to revive him?
I gave him 3 of my applications. So that's 6 milligrams, milliliters?
I'm sorry.
6 milligrams. My metric math is a little faded since 5th grade.
Okay. Did you guys have any questions, or did you want to get more video off of the laptop?
I'd like to bring my mic to the audio
Yeah, that's fine.
speaker while watching it up on here. You guys can do it different.